Hey everyone, Grandmaster Feingold here again with another video in the French defense series. This video is going to concentrate on the Winawer variation, named after Simon Winawer from a long time ago. And the Winawer variation in this position, taking as the exchange, playing here as the advance. And normally at the top level, white, if he doesn't make one of those moves, defends the pawn with the knight, either knight c3 or knight d2. In fact, I did a lecture on the Tarish French that lasted 45 minutes plus. It was a sponsored lecture that I give on Wednesdays, which you can find earlier in the channel. After knight c3, there's three moves that grandmasters often play. You can take on e4, which is what I do if I'm black in a French, which is rare. There's knight f6, that's what Karen does. And then there's the move I used to play when I played the French defense every game as a teenager, bishop to b4. That pins the knight. It develops a bishop, so it's good. And the negative is it weakens the g7 pawn. So in a lot of positions, white plays queen g4, and you have to make a tough decision. Now, a famous game in this variation is Bobby Fischer versus my dad, Ronald Feingold, in 1963. And Fischer played a line that was popular in the 60s, but then it stopped being popular. He played a3, which they don't play anymore. Takes, 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 black's up a pawn, and white plays queen g4, forking the two pawns. Most people don't want to play king f8 or g6, so they just sacrifice that pawn instead of the center pawn. White makes, a million queen moves. And this position is like the beginning of theory. And my dad lost a very long bishop ending with a zugzwang and all kinds of complications. Where, in fact, both my dad and Fischer castled queenside. Seems weird for white to castle queenside. But anyway, this is like what you would have to know if you're going to play black in a Winawer and the guy plays a3. A3 is very uncommon, so you're probably not going to face that very often if you play black. Most common move is to play e5. And here, black can either play knight e7 immediately or play c5. The advantage of knight e7 is you have some options after queen g4. You could even castle and defend your pawn that way. Now, some of you might be worried, like, oh no, I castle, that loses immediately to bishop h6. Yeah, bishop h6 actually is not a great move. Knight f5 defends the pawn and attacks the bishop, and knight g6 stops the attack and also attacks the bishop. So that's not as scary as you might think. The negative of knight e7 is you're not playing c5 fast enough and attacking the center. Sometimes they transpose. But after c5, the main line is to play a3, takes, takes, and now black has a wide choice of moves. There's queen a5, queen c7, knight e7, and when I was black, 35 years ago, I think I usually played knight e7. And it's very sharp and complicated. If you like that kind of game, then you'll want to play the Winawer with black. And with white, if you like really complex positions. What's complex about this? White has two bishops. That's good. White has double pawns. It's not great, and an isolated pawn, but these double pawns help defend the center, actually. If we trade, I got another pawn that can go to c3. And I have an open b file in case black decides to castle queenside. And if black castles kingside, I have a pawn on e5, and I have my two bishops, and my queen, my h-pawn. So white has a nice position, and as compensation for black has a better pawn structure. These pawns are doubled and isolated. And most grandmasters prefer white here. And I played black in this position many times. It's very interesting. If you want to play either side of the Winawer, I suggest you look at recent grandmaster games and see how they go, and whether you're white or black. And then black can also play a very unusual taking on d4 and then taking on c3, which I don't like for black. Some people do. And even more interesting is playing bishop a5. And if you don't know this move, it'll surprise you what the main line is. It's b4, and then after takes on b4, which may not be the best move, then knight b5, because you want to play knight d6 check, which is very annoying, by the way. Theory says this is good for white sacrificing a pawn. And you could also take on d4. And what's funny about this position is queen takes d4 doesn't have a good reputation. The two moves that white should play, if he wants to play one, knight b5, again, he wants to go here, or queen g4 to take on g7 and win the rook. Yeah. So very sharp, complicated chess. Bishop a5 might surprise your opponent if you want to play it with black and you want to learn a pet variation. And otherwise, if you play either side of the Winawer, probably going to have this position more times than not. And white has to decide whether to play queen g4 and attack or just play knight f3 and develop. And a lot of times, white wants to play a4 to play bishop a3 because that's a nice diagonal. Black doesn't have a dark squared bishop. So if this bishop can get to a good square, black's going to have a tough time thwarting that. So it's a very complicated opening, lots of grandmaster games, lots of decisive results. Depends what kind of position you like. Do you love the two bishops? Do you like the better pawn structure? Do you like more space? Then you'd want white. Do you like attacking these pawns? Then you like black. So very double-edged and complicated. If you like that, then you could play either side of the Winawer. I'm Grandmaster Ben Feingold with our French Defense series. Hope you like that video, and I'll see you for another video very soon. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.